Let's talk about some basics of this concept called copyright. So a lot of people just don't understand it. And as doing in not understanding, you're actually putting yourself at a lot of risk that if you just had a little bit of understanding, you'd keep yourself out of that risk. So I want to start off by saying I am definitely not a lawyer. I've never played one on TV, and you can ignore everything I say here, but I'm going to tell you a few things that I do think I understand. So, first one, copyright protects expression, not the ideas themselves. Okay, that sounds technical. Let me explain what I mean. I've got a system in my mind. Great. If I write it down, what I just wrote down is copyrighted. It doesn't protect the system that's in my brain. It doesn't express the knowledge and the ideas in my brain. Somebody else could take the ideas that someone could read what I do, get the ideas from that, and go and execute those ideas themselves. And those ideas are protected. I can't sue them for them using the same ideas that I have. The only thing I can sue them for is for copying my words that I use to do that. And those words can be written, they can be sung, they can be pictures, they can be all kinds of things. It's the expression of the idea. It can be a play, for example. Okay, so secondly, copyright is granted at the moment of creation. So if I write something, if I write a story right now, it is instantly protected. I don't have to put a Circle C on it. I don't have to put a date on it. I don't have to put any of that stuff. It used to be that had to be, but now the law has changed. It's copyrighted by the very fact that I just created, and it's instantly copyrighted. I don't have to send it off to Washington, D.C. into some large database of things, though you can do that. That's called registering your copyright. You are protected by copyright even if you don't register it. So it doesn't have to be registered to be copyrighted. Now, also, no Circle C on it does not mean that you can just use it. I'll give you a great example of this. There are a lot of people who go on, they need a graphic, they're working on a presentation, they need a graphic, so they just go on Google image search, they grab that image and put it in there because, hey, there's nothing on this image that has a Circle C or says that it's copyrighted. Well, guess what? You just violated copyright law because that picture, the moment that it was taken, is the property of the person who took that picture, whether they put a Circle C on it, whether they sent it off to Washington or whatever, it is owned from the moment they took that picture. No matter, even if they put it out there on the internet, they own it. Now, there are ways of putting it out on the internet that make it available to other people to use it. But they have to purposefully choose to do that, to relinquish their copyright ownership in certain degrees. It's called Creative Commons. You can also contractually give it to like a stock photography company or something like that. So there are ways to do it. And so if you are wanting to get images to use in your presentations, you need to be using ideally paid stock photography. Even the free sites that say, hey, free images, I could go and take a bunch of images that are owned by someone else and put them on a free image site. And if you use them, you can be sued by the owner of that image. So I avoid using free image sites whenever possible. I actually believe in paying for the images that I use from a paid stock photography site because those guys have the contracts that said that person said, you have permission to sell this to other people. Okay, then I can use that. All right. Next, it has to be original to be copyrighted. You can't copy it. So, for example, if I was to go and take a copy of the script for the latest Disney movie, and I type typed it out myself and put it up on the internet to sell it, I violated their copyright. Why? Because I copied their stuff and put it out there. It has to be original to me. I can sit down and write a story and put it out there, but I can't, but it has to be original. I can't copyright it. And by the way, Disney, don't mess with Disney. Disney's got a lot of really good lawyers. Okay, next. You can register your copyright. What that does, so here's how you do it. Just search register copyright. Ignore all the lawyers trying to sell you their services. Go down to the actual one that comes from the Copyright Office. There's a form on there. You can fill out that form and send it with some dollars and a copy of the thing you're copywriting and send it to Washington. What they will do is they will review it. They will put it in their database. And what ends up happening is if you do that, then that gives you a right to sue for damages. Now, realize that damages is a technical legal term. So if you don't send something off to Washington, don't register it, you actually, wait a minute, that's not what that thing was supposed to say. Let me get to the right one. Okay, well, I guess I didn't write that card. So if you can send something off to Washington, what that does is it gives you the ability to sue for punitive damages, which is the stuff that punishes someone. So if I send them a copy of my play and someone takes my play and goes and sells it to other people, I can sue them for the damages that I've received by not being able to sell that play myself. I can't sue them for $10 million to punish them for doing it unless I have sent that application into Washington. Okay, so you are protected. You can sue somebody for violating your copyright, even if you haven't sent it off to Washington. You just can't get the $10 million in punitive punishment damages associated with that. Okay, now this is what next thing. You can't, and this is a really common misunderstanding. You cannot copyright an idea. That's done through a patent, and patents actually don't, well, we're going to get technical about patents. If you want to protect an idea, patent is the route you go down. The second thing, you can't copyright a logo or a company name. That's done through a trademark. Okay? Copywriting a company name does nothing. It's trademark that protects that. Next, you cannot copyright single words, even if you invent that word. And you can't copyright short phrases, like, for example, book titles. So someone else has put out a book title. You can name a book with that same book title. Now, if someone has put out a New York Times bestseller book title, I would suggest you don't launch a book using that same book title, but they can't sue you for copyright for using their name. There's some other things. Again, I'm not a lawyer. There's lots and lots of things here. The last slide I'm going to put up on this thing is, hey, if you have a question, ask a lawyer. So we'll get back to that. Next, this is really interesting. You cannot copyright data. You can only copyright expressions of that data. So, for example, this is where web page scraping gets its stuff, is if there is someone who has a list of average mortgage prices for states, mortgage amounts for states across the United States, you could take that data and put it on your website as long as you don't copy the way they expressed that data. So you can't take a screenshot of their table and put that table in. But you legally can, and again, ask a lawyer. As I understand it, you legally can take the individual pieces of data because they can't copyright the data itself. Now, in doing so, you may be violating their company's terms of use of that data. So they may still be able to sue you for violating their terms of use, but they can't sue you for copyright. And so recognize that your data, when you put out data, let's say you do a survey or something like that, you put out data, other people can use that data and write about it on blog posts or other products. Next piece. There's this concept called work for hire. So remember what I said in the very beginning. Copy works are protected the moment they're created and are owned by the creator. Okay, so if I hire somebody, let's say I hire an outsourcer to write a script for me for a video that I'm going to create. That script is their property. They own that script. They own the copyright to that script. If I want to own that script, which I do because I'm going to turn it into my video, I have to do what is called a work for hire agreement, which basically says this thing that you're creating will be owned by me, not by you. In other words, they have to give up their copyright ownership of that. This right here is going to get many, many people in trouble. It already has. And so a standard element in many companies when you hire an employee is you have them sign some documents, and one of those documents should contain a work for hire agreement that basically says anything you create while working for me that is done about this, well, talk to a lawyer. Anything you do for me is owned by me, not by you. Okay? That's a work for hire agreement, and if you don't do it, you actually could be sued by the people you hired to create that script because you use the script that you paid them for. I don't understand why this exists in law, but that's what exists in law. Please don't get in trouble for that. Next, there's this question of, hey, I do something, let's say I put out an ebook. Should I put that under copyright owned by me or by my company? Well, it all depends. So if you were to later on sell your company, would the buyer expect to get that ebook with it? If so, then you probably want to copyright it under the name of the company, because when the company sells, that asset is going to go with the company. Okay? So in many cases, most cases that we are working on, again, ask a lawyer. Most of the cases where we're working on, we're creating content that we are putting out there either free or sold. It's part of our company. It's probably best to copyright it under your company's name, not under your personal name. If you ever sell your company, this will all get worked out in the sale. Sometimes I actually copyright things in both my company and my personal name, realizing that if I ever sell that thing, I will grant my personal copyright to my company, which then can grant that company right to the company that's buying it. Okay. Final thing I want to talk about. And this is literally, you take semesters of this in law school, which I have not gone to, but there's one other concept that I want to bring up. There's this concept called free use, which a lot of people abuse constantly. They say, oh, free use means that I can use anything in the world for educational purposes. Yeah, if you're a teacher in a school and have a class of 34 sixth graders. If you're creating a course that you're selling to people for $1,997, that's not fair use. Educational purpose, yes, but you're selling that content to someone else. And so that's not fair use. If I take somebody else's stuff and put it in my course that I'm selling to someone else, I can't claim fair use on that it was done for educational purposes because I took it and sold it. So most uses of fair use, if you're going to use those things for business purposes, do not apply. So don't fall into that trap. Final slide. I've already showed it to you. Ask a lawyer. So as I said, I am not a lawyer. Anything I just said, you should ignore. But it may help you to get some ideas about what you can and can't do with copyright. And when you have a question, ask a lawyer. It's too important. And you want to stay out of court. Trust me, you want to stay out of court. Okay? I hope this answered some of your questions. I hope this might have stirred some things where you said, oh no, I've been violating copyright for years. And I hope that it also helps you understand, hey, copyright actually is in the Constitution. Did you know that? It's in the Constitution of the United States to protect the works that we create And so it's protected. And that's the reason why there are things like, hey, the moment you create it, it's copyrighted and it's owned by you. So there is protection there that's pretty powerful. And I'm grateful we have it. Any thoughts? Any questions? Put them in the comments. This is Don Crowther saying, just go do this stuff.